So you're going to need to use a microphone. You're going to wander around?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Do you want one set up down there? Or you want to hold on to it?
I can just hang on to it.
Yeah, that'll work.
Just so I don't start singing. Huh?
Yeah. That's okay too.
If I start singing, everybody will holler, preach, preach. Get all those requests for singing on a hill far away and that. Okay. We have been with Baptist for Life. This is our 10th year. We started in 2012, and July 1st, we'll be starting our 11th year. We've appreciated the opportunity to be involved in Baptist for Life. One of the things that I always emphasize to everyone that we started in 1990, but our number one goal is not to stop abortion. Our number one goal is to reach people for Christ. And usually it's when people are going through a crisis or something like that, that they're open to listen to suggesting things. It's been an exciting thing. As many of you know, I still work with as track chaplain for two different racetracks, one on Friday night, one on Saturday night. And as a result of that, I've had an opportunity to do probably 7 or 8 funerals with people that were connected to the racetrack because I was the only religious guy they knew. But it's a tremendous opportunity to share the gospel. And we're looking for all kinds of opportunities. And so that's one of these ministries. Anyone that comes into one of our pregnancy centers, they will get the gospel shared right up front. You'd think, well, that would be a normal thing. But a lot of the pregnancy centers, even though they may be religiously based, they're reluctant to share the gospel because they are afraid they'll offend people or drive them away. But even if you were to stop an abortion, people are still going to go to hell. There are some statistics I'm going to show you. You'd think that when you bring them to Jesus Christ, that then they wouldn't get an abortion, but that's not necessarily the case. As I mentioned, we're still a growing family. When I started out with Baptist for Life, my goal was to reach 70 and have 50 descendants. Well, I'm 77 now, and this last summer, I officiated at my grandson's wedding, and his wife was number 73 in our family. So, and I got 3 granddaughters that are expecting this year, and we just had one that got married. So we're hitting probably 77 when I'm still 77. So we're excited. Now we're going to go for 100 and 100, but probably get there with the people, but not me. We do really believe in the sanctity of human life, that children are the heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. You know, that's something that is special. Too often times we as parents don't enjoy our children as much as we ought to. We're always kind of tending to look for the next step. Remember when you thought, well, when they're not in diapers anymore, when they all get into school, when they all, and we fail to enjoy them at every step of their life. I'll have to honestly say that we did enjoy our children all of their lives. In your bulletin, we have a flyer, and my emphasis here is on fatherhood and the responsibility of fathers. And one of the little things that I put in there is, when we have children, they are so cute when they're little babies. Now, your little one here was flirting with my wife and I this morning, but we didn't get offended. Okay, but when they're little like that, they win your heart, so that you fall in love with them, so that you can handle the teenage years. You know what I'm talking about? We ended up adopting 4 children, as you know, and we missed out on the baby years. We had to learn to love them without that. That was a little different. Okay. Well, uh, do like to keep people up to date on what's going on. We put out a Proclaimer newsletter 4 times a year. It tells you what's going on in the country. I do have copies of it on my table if you'd like to pick one of them up. I usually have an article in there as I see it, my own personal observation of what's going on in the country. There is a sign-up sheet on our table that if you would like to get that regularly when it comes out by email, if you sign up and put your email address on there legibly, we will make sure that you get that and keep you informed. We also put out a monthly prayer letter, and if you do sign up on that sheet, you'll automatically get that as well. Your pastor gets them, and I hope he puts them out and makes them available to people of what's going on. And this is giving you an update of what's going on with Baptist for Life in the state of Wisconsin. But then I also came out with this Praying Army for Life. That's what I call my PAL letter. Every Thursday or Friday, I let people know what happened the week before and where I'm going to be that weekend. And so you can feel like you're a real part of what we are doing in our ministry. I really do believe in the accountability, but I also need prayer. Some of you are aware that this last year I went through some real health issues. The doctors have kind of got it regulated, so I'm doped up enough so I can keep on going. I want to do this until I'm 80. I got 3 more years to go, and then the Lord can just take me home if he wants to. But anyway, the only reason I believe that I made it through the whole year is that a lot of people were praying for me. I let it be known that I needed people praying, not because I wanted sympathy. I just still want to keep on going with this ministry. And I really do believe that it was because of people praying for me that I made it as far as that. But in order to get on this, you have to email me at info@bflw.org and just say, I want to be on your PAL list. And the reason that I ask people to do that is because I know that if they will do that, they'll probably take the time to pray. And I'm not interested in just having a lot of people on there. What I'm interested in is prayer warriors. And I do appreciate them. Now, if you can't remember that, you can pick up one of our prayer cards and you can use it for other than just the dartboard. That you can, it's got our email address on it, and just say I'd like to be on your PAL list, and we'll automatically put you on that. We have started 5 centers actually in the state, although the one that we started down in Watertown has kind of been put on hold because of the COVID thing, and they haven't been moving ahead. But the Alpha Women's Center in Milwaukee was started in 1993. Holly Hickey is the director of that one. She has cancer, and they've been going through, she's not responding well to the cancer treatments. You need to pray for Holly. I know that she would appreciate that. That ministry does more business than the other 3 combined, like 10 times over. They're the only one that's open 5 days a week, full time. And they're in a place in Milwaukee where they really need to be. They do have probably an average of at least 2 a month that they talk out of abortion, which is tremendous, and encouragement. And they will share about having an opportunity to lead people to the Lord through that ministry. But pray for Holly. She'd appreciate it very greatly. The Access Women's Center was started in Madison in 1998. This one has the 3 wise men for it. So, you know, it's got an advantage. The last time you heard about them, it was when Jesus was born. But this is Fred, Mark, and Mike Weiss, the pastors. Some of you are familiar with them. They're all on the board of this one. Actually, Mark is the chairman of the board. Mike is the secretary, and Fred is the vice president of it. So they do a great job. Stephanie Larson is the director of it, and I really appreciate her ministry and the work that she is doing there. It is a real blessing in a place where it is not the most popular thing to be pro-life. The Agape Women's Center has started in La Crosse in 2003, and My wife and I really had a part in getting it started. We appreciate the unity of spirit, and it's the only one that was started the way we did. We made all the pastors and the assistant pastors of all the churches that supported automatically on the board, and it has worked out absolutely beautifully. I really do appreciate the ministry. My wife is the director of it, and we appreciate that ministry of being able to serve the Lord that way. The Assurance Women's Center in Appleton was started in 2007. Sarah Whitelick was the director of it, but she had her third child this last year, and so she stepped down. And actually, my daughter-in-law, Gina Borrow, Scott's wife, is now the director. Scott is the pastor at Stevens Point at Berea Baptist Church, actually a church that I pastored back in 78 to 82 when Scott was just a teenager. Now he's a grandpa, and he is pastoring that church. But Gina is the director. And again, one of the things that the COVID has done is it has slowed down traffic. Now it's starting to pick up. Even the Agape Center is starting to pick up somewhat. But there were two reasons why it shut down or didn't have the clients. One of them is because children weren't going to school, and so the moms didn't have anybody to watch the kids so they could come in. And then all of these stimulus checks that went out, people are saying, hey, we don't need the centers. In all of our centers, we provide a learn and earn program where women can, by doing Bible studies, memorizing scripture, and attending churches, can earn diapers and formula and baby clothes and baby furniture to help them with their with their children. And actually, some of them said, hey, we get all these stimulus checks, we don't need that. And but they do need the Lord, and that's one of the reasons that we have those ministries. And then the New Focus Center in Watertown was started in 2020, but it has that kind of been put on hold. We do have one AIM program. Some of you might remember I shared with people a vision that I had in my own mind as I got involved in this ministry. The AIM stands for Assistance in Mothering. And because much of our pregnancy centers work is working with mothers who have children who need help and counseling along the way, I came up with this AIM, which stands for Assistance in Mothering, where a local church could have a ministry operating out of their local church, where they didn't have to rent a separate building, didn't have separate utilities, and it would be strictly a ministry of that local church under the auspices of that church, and they could run it any way they wanted to. Craig Coomer over at Beth Haven Baptist in Green Bay, in the very shadow of Lambeau Field, there by the Holy Land, they had a burden for this ministry. Now they've actually sold their property to Lambeau Field and have purchased other property, and they're in the process of going to build another church building. And you would have thought that they would have said, well, let's wait until we get this all taken care of. But they had such a burden for this ministry, they wanted to do it now. And so they are having an AIM program working out of their local church, and we're kind of excited about that. This is something that we could start these all over the state of Wisconsin in areas where you can't get enough churches together to have a pregnancy center where you rent a building and all of those things. And there are women in every town that need a place where they can go. And even if it's only open one day a week or a couple of days a month, there would be a place where a woman could go to get some help and some counseling. And so you might pray about that. The most dangerous place for a child to be in America is the mother's womb. Isn't that sad? That should be the safest place. On ultrasound, when they're doing an abortion and they're cutting the baby up, that baby, when they show it on the ultrasound, is doing everything it can to get away from that forceps and that knife until it is killed. January 22nd, 1973 is when the Supreme Court made abortion be illegal for all 9 months of the pregnancy. They stated at that time, we don't know when life begins. And you would have thought that they would have erred on the side of caution and said, we're going to make it outlawed until we find it out. But they said, we're going to make it legal. But they said at that time, when we do determine when life begins, we'll have to look at this again. And now we're having a lot of states that are passing these heartbeat bills. And what they're doing is they were pushing it to be able to be challenged all the way to the Supreme Court so it would get overturned. And as you're keeping up in the news, you hear that there's a lot of things that are heading toward that. And because of our former president and the people that he put on the Supreme Court, we have a majority of people that are pro-life. And there is a good chance that Roe versus Wade will be overturned. However, all that will do is put it back on the states, the individual states. Amazingly, we do have some laws on the books in the state of Wisconsin that if it gets overturned, will rule out most abortions in the state of Wisconsin. But until that happens, we won't change. It is interesting that even though there are some states that are passing the heartbeat bill, which means that if you can detect a heartbeat, it would be illegal to abort that child. And the truth is, you won't even know you're pregnant until that heart starts beating. So it, all intents and purposes, would rule it out. But there are other states that are passing the no-fault abortion laws. And so you'll have people that will be traveling from one state to another to get an abortion if their state makes it illegal. Norma Mccorvey was the Jane Roe in the Roe versus Wade that they used. She did not get an abortion. She had a little girl. She put her daughter up for adoption. They were reunited before she died, and she actually became pro-life. She was working in an abortion clinic, Planned Parenthood, and Operation Rescue moved into this storefront right side of there, and she became friends with them. She eventually left Planned Parenthood and joined that ministry and actually became pro-life. The whole thing was based on a lie. The whole premise that they did when they used her as the guinea pig, if you would. 63 million plus, it's about 63.5 million preborn children have been killed by abortion since January 22nd, 1973. And now, 49 years later, since that Supreme Court decision known as Roe versus Wade, and it kicked out the legal sanctification. Here are some things. 43% of all women will have at least one abortion by the time they're 45 years old. 47% of all abortions are performed on women who have had at least one previous abortion. So almost half of them will have a second one. They use it as a matter of birth control, if you would. 64.4% of all abortions are performed on never married women. Married women account for 18.4%, and divorced women obtain 9.4%. 1% of all abortions occur because of rape or incest, and 6% of abortions occur because of potential health problems regarding either the mother or the child. And that was the basis of why they wanted to make it legal. Those two issues, that's 7% of it. 93% of all abortions occur for social reasons. The child is either unwanted, inconvenient, or in many cases, just the wrong sex. They wanted a boy. In China, where they had zero population growth and were only allowed to have one child, they wanted to make sure that they had a boy, so they had someone to carry on the name of the family. And so they would abort the girls. And then all of a sudden they found out that they had a lack of women in the country. Who could have saw that coming, huh? Uh, some other Protestant obtained 37.4%. No religious affiliation, 23.7%. Catholics account for 31.3%. Notice that both of the Protestants and Catholics are a higher percentage of those that no religious affiliation at all. But here's the one that's sad. 18% of all abortions are performed on women who identify themselves as born-again evangelical. And you say, how could that happen? I'll tell you how it happens. You got people in church that are very strongly pro-life, adamantly pro-life, until their teenage daughter gets pregnant. And then they slip off to another state because of the embarrassment of it all and get an abortion. They'll still maintain a pro-life stand, but they'll be involved in it. And the reason that I know that happens is because it happened in my church. It was before I was the pastor there, but it was a young girl that got pregnant by one of the young fellows in the youth group. And the mother took the daughter to another state, got an abortion. The father didn't even know about it. And that family was, and still is, very strongly pro-life. And they'll be adamant about it. It's kind of interesting that there are some people that we know, some pastors. Pastor King, Dr. Olala, who was the director of, both of them had daughters that got pregnant out of wedlock, but rather than covering it up, they dealt with it. Dr. Olala raised his own grandson, and Pastor King also, they supported their daughter through that all. It isn't the unpardonable sin, and we need to realize we all make mistakes. The concern that we have is we want to give to people the idea that we're perfect, and we're not. We're all sinners saved by grace. And if we got what we deserved, it certainly wouldn't be heaven, right? Here's some other appalling facts. 52% are younger than 25. 20 to 24 obtain 32% of the abortions. Teenagers obtain 20% of abortions, and under 15 about 1.2. 63 million. That is represents the entire population for Wisconsin, Minnesota, North and South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. Oops, back it up here. Arizona, New Mexico, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, Alaska, and Vermont. The total of all of those states is the 63 million. The Bible says that life begins at conception. God told Jeremiah, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet on all the nations. God demands that we reverence and protect human life, that innocent blood be not shed in thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance, and so blood be upon thee. In Proverbs 6:17, one of the things that God said he hates is hands that shed innocent blood. Can you imagine any blood more innocent than a baby in a womb? Ironically, these people that talk about being pro-choice and pro-death when it comes to baby, I don't like to call them pro-choice because we give them more choices than they do. The other side does. But ironically, there is a time when they are pro-life. You know when that is? When they're convicted criminals. Then they don't want to give them the death penalty. They don't mind giving babies, innocent babies, the death penalty, but they do those that are convicted. Again, if thou forbear to deliver them that are drawn unto death, and those that are ready to be slain, if thou sayest, behold, we knew it not, doth not he that pondereth the heart consider it, and he that keepeth thy soul, doth he not know it? And shall not he render to every man according to his work? You know, there are people that'll say, it's not our problem. Actually, what you're doing is fighting for the loved ones of your opposition. Really, it's for their safety. But we say, well, it's not our problem. Yes, it is our problem, because they're innocent lives, and somebody has to speak up for them. If we're not going to do it, his. What keeps a nation focused on sanctity of human life? It was John Quincy Adams that shared that there are 3 points of doctrine for the foundation of morality. The first is the existence of God. The second is the immortality of the soul. And the third is the future state of reward. And if you disbelieve those things, there is no other law but the law of the tiger and the shark, the survival of the fittest, in other words. And this is the idea. When this country was founded, it was founded based on the fact of those 3 things. There is a God, there is a soul that's going to live forever somewheres, and there is a rewards and punishment as a result of how you live, okay? And when this country was founded, they assumed that the Bible had established what was right and wrong, okay? If the Bible says it's right, then it's right. If the Bible says it's wrong, it's wrong. And all the laws of our country, when they were originally established, were based on the fact that whatever the Bible said, we're backing up. Back in the 60s, when they started taking the Bible out of the schools and the 10 Commandments out of the courtrooms, they didn't want to have an absolute standard, so that they could now bring in the idea that the majority rules, like the Supreme Court. What does the majority of the people want? And so that's going to establish what is right and wrong. And there are a lot of women that will tell you that they're getting an abortion because there's nothing wrong with it. Our government has established that it's okay, it's not wrong, it's not unlawful to get an abortion. And so I'm going to get an abortion. If the government overturned that, there were a lot of women who would say, well, I can't get an abortion, it's wrong. It is wrong, folks. I don't care what the government does, and whatever they establish, it's still wrong, and it's still sin, and it's going to have consequences. I shared this last year about Margaret Sanger. She was the one that actually founded Planned Parenthood, which is an ironic name for the ministry. She was from one of these large families where the older ones helped take care of the younger ones, you know, and she resented that. She actually was trying to advocate for birth control and that they could, this idea of your unlimited sexual gratification without the burden of unwanted children. That was her mentality. And actually, during the turn of the century, she started smuggling contraceptives into the United States when it was illegal in the United States for contraceptives. And she actually got thrown in prison for that. She was the one that was behind the birth control pill. The idea was that women should be able to have unlimited sexual gratification without worrying about whether they're going to get pregnant or not. And the birth control pill came out and it was lauded as a great discovery. Women were putting their daughters on birth control pills, not so they wouldn't get pregnant, because they were told that that would help their cycle to be more regular, that it would help their complexion. And they were selling them a bill of goods. They didn't tell them about all of the side effects and the consequences of those kinds of things as a result of that. This is some of her mentality. The most merciful thing that a family does to one of its infant members is to kill it. Now, lest you think this is terrible, there are Baptist preachers that I have talked to that said, well, at least if the baby is aborted, you know it's going to go to heaven. And if it was allowed to live, it may not accept the Lord and it'll go to hell. Okay? So it's kind of in line with what she's saying here. Okay? Her idea was we should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service background and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro through a religious, it's through a religious appeal. We don't want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, but that's exactly what she wanted to do. She believed in eugenics. That meant that there are only certain kinds of people that should be allowed to live. And one of those should not be allowed to live are blacks. That's why most of the Planned Parenthood abortion clinics were in black neighborhoods. The more of them that you can get rid of, the better. She also believed that you ought to get rid of all of the handicapped, mentally or physically handicapped, so you have a superior race. In fact, she advocated, she said, today eugenics is suggested by the most diverse minds as the most adequate and thorough avenue to the solution of racial, political, and social problems. Well, if you don't think that's what the public schools are doing. They're telling their kids, your parents are out of the loop. They aren't smart. If you were intelligent at all, this is the way you would think. So the kids are growing up and saying, well, I don't want to be behind the times like my folks are. We want to be modern and up to date with it. Our failure to segregate morons who are increasing and multiplying demonstrates our foolhardily extravagant sentimentalism. Her idea was that if a couple was getting married, they would have to get permission from the government and go through tests to find out if they were qualified to have good, healthy children or not. And they'd have to get a license to actually have children. That was her mentality. And she thought, she didn't like the church because the church is always championing the underdog, for the handicapped and all of that kind of stuff. She said, just let them die. Don't let them propagate. Don't let them have children. And so they just die off. The best thing you could do would be to sterilize them. Okay, that was her kind of a mentality. Now the birth control pill was followed up by the 486, the RU486 pill. Some of you have heard about that, the morning after pill that women can take. If they did get pregnant, they could get rid of the baby. It's not a fetus, it's a baby. Okay. There's one at a time, let's see, all of this is about that. The goal of birth control is to create a race of thoroughbred. And here, she said, hordes of people are born who live yet have done absolutely nothing to advance the race one iota. Their lives are hopeless repetitions. Such human weeds cloud up the path, drain up the energies and the resources of this little earth. So where do you fit? Are you one of those weeds? Okay. So as a result of that, sex is a normal part of a relationship with another individual. It's only wrong when it's against the will of another. And contraceptives should be used to prevent unwanted pregnancies and sexual diseases. And if you find yourself pregnant, you can choose to abort a baby. So how do the world responds? We no longer, and this is even in the Christian community, we no longer believe that God is the one who opens and closes the womb. Do we? Well, if we don't do something about that, God is going to give us more children than we can take care of. Doesn't sound like we're trusting God in this area of our lives, does it? Now, ironically, with my wife and I, when we had our sixth one, Tricia, she started giving us trouble way back then, still doing it, but my wife had so much difficulty, they said it would be very dangerous for her to have any more. And so we took some steps to avoid having any more. But God says, you're not done yet. And thrust upon us 4 more, as you remember, we adopted. But the sad thing of it is, was God in charge of opening and closing the womb in the Old Testament? Was he in charge of that in the New Testament? Okay, can you think of any illustration in the New Testament? I guess you'd have to say John the Baptist, right? Okay. So, that's a sticky one, and I get people upset with me about that one. Okay. We will use drugs and other means to control what and when our family will be. And contraceptives are used by both married and unmarried women, and almost 50% of the people believe it's okay to have an abortion today in the United States. Now, in contrast to that, there are pregnancy centers have served 1.85 million people, provided 267 million in free services, carried out 486,213 ultrasounds, gave 1,290,079 packs of diapers, supplied 2,033,513 baby outfits. I think I'm an auctioneer here. Not a single pregnancy resource center is run by a pro-choice activist. Then it comes to the infanticide. There are people that are advocating today that couples ought to have up to a year, the child's year-old birthday, to decide whether they're going to allow them to live or not. The one that concerns me is this euthanasia, when they deliberately ending the life of the unwanted. I tell my children I want to live to be a burden to them. You know, they say I'm already there. So, okay. These are just some facts. I'm going to run this through. I got 5 minutes, okay? Involved, because my message this year is on fatherhood. Involved dads improve their child's overall emotional and social well-being. Children with involved dads are less likely to be mistreated. Children who live with their dads do better in school. Adolescent teen boys who live with their dads are less likely to carry guns and deal drugs. Individuals from father-absent homes were 279% more likely to carry guns and deal drugs than peers who lived with their father. Involved dads reduce mom's parenting stress. 19.5 million children, more than 1 in 4, live without a father in the home. Children with imprisoned fathers are more likely to have depression. Children living with their father in the home are 47% more likely to live without a father in the home. 47% more likely to live in poverty, 4 times the rate for children living in a married couple family. Men with absent fathers are more likely to become absent fathers themselves. Women with absent fathers are more likely to have children with absent fathers. Boys have fewer behavior problems, and girls have fewer psychological problems when they have an involved dad. 1 in 4 children live in a home without a dad. Absence of a biological father contributes to increased risk of child maltreatment. And that's why child protection services have some justification viewing the presence of a social father as increasing children's risk of abuse and neglect. Social father means they're not related to the child. It's a husband, boyfriend, or the mother's boyfriend. Father's involvement in school is associated with a higher likelihood of a student getting mostly A's. Children living in an father-absent home, twice as likely to repeat a grade in school. Now, there's a kid with an attitude, huh? Children raised in a father-absent home are more likely to experience behavioral problems. 92% of parents in prison are fathers. That means 8% are women, mothers. 2 million single father households versus 10 million single mother households in the U.S. Dad's involvement during pregnancy and positively influences health outcomes for mom and dad and baby. And compared to pregnant women, those without father support, pregnant women with father support experience a lower prevalence of pregnancy loss, and allowing fathers to be involved in caring for their child in the first days of the child's life can have a positive long-term benefit. And daughters are less likely to engage in risky sexual behavior when they are consistent with, and a sense of closeness with their dads. So, what can we do? We can win people to the Lord, teach our children the Bible truths about the sanctity of life, speak out publicly for biblical values, support pro-life causes, distribute pro-life literature, pray for end of legalized abortion, and vote biblically. That's really important. Look at where they stand. I'm going to jump across here. You can get involved by encouraging the church to place Baptist for Life in your mission budget. I do have a thing, if you would like to be a member of Baptist for Life and support what we're doing, it's $35 a year for individual, $50 a year for a couple. There's a flyer on our table that you can pick up to do that. You can contact state legislators about pro-life bills. I have a flyer out there with all the contact information that you can get. Help start a church pregnancy center. I don't encourage you to do that here, but support the one we've got. Enter the essay contest. Emily did enter the essay contest. We're still waiting for the results of it. I have people down at Watertown, Maranatha, that do the judging for me. Otherwise, I'd be prejudiced. You just give me some money and we'll get it done. Get involved in a pregnancy center, help organize a fundraiser for a center, attending one of the annual rallies. We're going to have two of them, one at Calvary Baptist in Watertown and one at Emmanuel Baptist in Menominee, one north and south. Dr. Les Olola is going to be the speaker at both of them. That was the old essay. This is a new one, Fatherhood, a Blessing and a Responsibility, and the Choose Life license plate. And so the abortion rate falls to the lowest level since Roe versus Wade. We are pro-life. Ironically, in all the states, the abortion rate has gone down, except in Wisconsin. It's gone up because there's a state-of-the-art abortion clinic in Milwaukee where they are doing quite a business. Okay.
Thank you, Brother Pearl. We do appreciate your ministry, and we certainly appreciate you coming over here and being with us today. It's definitely a matter of prayer. Absolutely. So, praise the Lord. All right, so we are dismissed until the morning service.